Ready?
Ready.
Okay, I'll call the order, Truckee River Flood Management Authority for Friday, October, that's the minutes. So how about Friday, November the 9th, with a roll call, please? Here.
I don't think your mic is up. Bob, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. I just can't hear you very well. So yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Well, we can turn this up. Okay. Von Hartung,
Present.
Donald Abbott, and Paul McKenzie is absent. We do have a quorum, sir.
Okay, if you'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Abbott, would you lead us, please?
Yes, sir. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll move on to public comment. Anybody in the audience that wishes to speak, would you fill out a card, please, and we'll get you up to speak for 3 minutes. First speaker is Art O'Connor. Welcome, Art.
Good morning, Jay, commissioners.
Good morning.
I was one of the 2 members on the no side. And the reason for that was not so much the tax consequences, as I don't think the proposed project would actually solve the downtown Reno flooding. I'm a civil engineer, and I know that Vista is 100 feet lower than downtown Reno. So I was here for the 97 flood, and I was downtown sandbagging, so I know what really happened. And the water came down 1st and 2nd Street after jumping the banks at Idlewild and Oxbow. So working below that isn't going to do you much good. You need to go upstream. There is a spot about 1,200 feet south of the Fleisch Power Station where the canyon narrows down. The land up above that area is owned by Tumwa and the UP. So it's not any kind of California land. It's still in Nevada. If you build a structure across there, and all I've heard on discussions on this subject are words like reservoir and dam and lake and that kind of stuff. You need to think a little differently. You need to think about just flood control, period, nothing else. Any other structure is going to be a major environmental headache. But for flood control, you could build probably about a 20-foot structure across there, earth filled on the ends with concrete in the middle over the river, and open all the time, except for that 1% when the flood comes down. Then you would have a gate that would just drop down and throttle the river to the point where it doesn't flood downtown Reno. And the water is intercepted and allowed to pond behind the structure up into that vacant area. So much cheaper than the stuff you guys have proposed. And I don't know why nobody's thought about this. I think the problem is that big government, and you get to start thinking about upstream storage for water, fish, and irrigation and everything else. But the thing would span between the steamboat ditch on the east side and the railroad tracks on the west side. Maybe only 20 feet tall, that's all you need. You'd have to do a little calculation out there. I did a little back of the envelope type thing, and I came up with 20 feet. Much cheaper than all the work you guys proposed. Probably less than 100 million. And you could easily get core funding for that because it's really flood control. It isn't replacing bridges in downtown Reno that are not flood control. It is really nothing else but flood control. So I'd suggest that you look at that, and because you got the money and you can use it for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Anybody else in the audience wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, bring it back to authority. Move on to C, approval of the agenda for November 9th. Anybody wishing to pull anything?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hartung?
I would recommend that we pull item number 4. And with that, the pulling of item number 4, an approval, motion to approve.
Let me ask a question. Well, we have a motion, looking for a second.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Did you have some, by pulling it, you can still make your comments or no?
My comments aren't even necessary. I was just
Okay.
going to provide some information about the numbers from the vote if you wished, but the item is not necessary.
Okay.
Well, and my fear is calling it the canvas of the vote, Mr. Chairman, and that is completely a function of the voter registrar and talking about what the numbers actually are, how the vote was accomplished, and how they tabulated it.
Right. The reason that was placed on the agenda was at the advice of bond counsel, that if it passed and if we were going to bond against the income stream from that tax, that this entity would need to in some way acknowledge and approve that. So that was the language proposed, but since it did not pass, it's not necessary.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Lucy? Bob?
We might have just lost him.
Okay, so we're going to have to get him back because we need him for
Right.
the quorum.
Right here. Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that, folks.
I don't know which. I think it's this one. Transmit.
I don't know.
We'll do transmit high.
Hi, you've reached Bob Lucy. I'm unable to get to my phone right now. Please leave your name, number, and time of message, and I'll get back to you at my...
Keep dialing.
We're going to send him a text. He may not even realize he's off the phone yet.
Okay,
It's early in the morning. He might be sleeping.
behind the wheel.
He's away on business.
Should have blown my horn when I went by his house.
Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please.
Ay, ay, ay.
He's not home. He's
No,
out of
it's-
town.
let's try it again.
Trying to cut down. We just have to leave it on there.
Hello? Sorry.
Okay, you're there now, Bob?
Yeah, sorry, I lost you for a second.
Okay, Bob, we have a motion and a second on on the approval of the agenda. The motion includes to pull item number 4, the canvassing of the vote. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Mr. Lucy?
We just lost him again.
It's goes to idle.
Yeah, hang on. I'm gonna have this number memorized.
Is this Monday or Friday?
It will be Monday.
It will be Monday.
Not Friday the 13th, no.
No.
See what's dropping.
Hi, you've reached Bob Lucy. I'm unable to get to my phone right now.
And we didn't bring donuts.
I know. Today would have been a great day for a donut.
Did you see the little donuts open by Dad's?
Oh, it is going to open up again?
But not as little donut.
Well, it's going to be, not Dunkin' Donuts.
It's not Dunkin'.
But he doesn't.
It's a bigger. Doughboy.
Doughboy.
Yep.
Those are good.
Yep. Done.
Hi, you've reached Bob Lucy.
Life.
Where is Bob?
He's out of town. He's not home.
At least we got the agenda approved.
Not yet.
Oh, no, we didn't? Yeah, that's right.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Hi, you've reached Bob Lucy.
Okay, so let's do this, and keep trying to get Bob. I'm looking for items where there is no action. We,
Can,
Yeah, and that-
ask council, can we do it without approving the agenda?
Since at this point, it's not a public meeting, you can discuss anything you want and not violate the open meeting law.
Talk about donuts?
Now, you cannot take, absolutely, but you cannot take any vote, you can't take any action.
sure.
That's the problem. When we do have a couple of items on the agenda, that particularly the insurance policy is a significant one. And if we do get Bob and can hold him for a few minutes, I might suggest that we jump to that item.
Can we call Bob Zine?
Well, we could always call Paul.
Yeah.
Hi, you've reached Bob Lucy. I'm unable to get to my phone right now.
Everything on here is for possible action.
D, E, 5, 6D, 6E, and 5 are discussed.
It says for possible action on those, though.
Yeah, you could discuss them and then not take action.
Not take action.
Okay, so do we want to bring Lori up and do the financial status? Lori, are you ready to do that? 6D and 6E?
Hi, you've reached Bob Lucy.
Welcome, Lori.
Good morning. Lori Williams, Senior Financial Analyst for Truckee River Flood Management Authority. You have before you the financial statements, and I don't have anything unusual to point out except that we have enough activity in the Capital Projects Fund that we did make our first transfer to the Capital Projects Fund from the General Fund in the amount of $98,000. All revenues are on track, all expenditures are on track. There's nothing extraordinary or out of the budget parameters. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions or comments for Lori? Okay, move on to E? No, D.
The encumbrance report is also there, and you will see that as of the end of the month, we had total outstanding obligations of $7,050,973.78. That's comprised of about $4.4 million in encumbrances between the general and the capital projects fund, and $2.6 million for other agreements, including the Corps and FEMA grants. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions or comments for Lori? Thank you, Lori. So let's, giving direction or anything like that would not be considered,
No, certainly as, we have members of the board call us from time to time and ask us to perform
okay.
functions that don't require a vote, and so certainly if any of the board members here in a
Okay.
non-quorum would.
Hi, you've reached Bob.
Okay, so I'd like to make a comment. We live and die by the vote, and we lost the initiative for the Truckee River funding. We didn't lose it, we got stomped. And there's members of this commission, members of the Reno City Council and the County Commission that actually served on this committee that came out against the flood project. Their reasoning being that it did not address flooding in the North Valleys or the tributaries in Reno. It never did. For the last 20 years we've been working on this project, it never did. It was always about the Truckee River Basin. So I would like staff to bring forward recommendations for fixing the tributaries and helping the North Valleys and imposing fees. This authority has the authority to put fees in place to take care of those things. So let's get this done if that was their real concern that we weren't doing those. We have the ability to put fees in place, and I'm willing to do that. So we'll see who else is. Is that clear?
Very.
Okay. Any comments on what I just said or questions? I'm a little miffed on how people sitting on this committee can come out and say, I'm not in favor after everything we do to put it in place. I'm not mad about it. We lost the vote. That's all there is. We don't pass taxes. We put it to the vote. So we live and die by that vote, and that's what we're doing right now.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hartung.
Thank you. And I think all of us, Donald, you serve on WRWC as well, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all three of us serve on WRWC. We've asked for a map that talks about all of the conveyance channels, how water is moving through the system, where it's trying to go, whether it's in the North Valleys to terminus basins or somewhere down in the actual Truckee Meadows where it's trying to reach the river or exactly what it's trying to do. I'm hopeful that when we see that map, we may be able to get a better idea as to a path forward as to how we can solve some of these problems and deal with it potentially in just a more regional fashion. So,
you know, I think the problem with that is they're conflating the difference between the Truckee River Flood Project and the outlying areas.
oh, no question.
So that was their excuse for coming out against it. They would not vote for it, and that is just unfair and not true.
Well, and this will show clearly that they are two distinct separate basins, and how do we deal with those two distinct basins? And that's,
Well, I know how we can deal with them, Mr. Hartung. We can impose fees and fix those areas. We have that authority.
we haven't, I'm sorry. Do we have the authority to impose a fee to fix something outside because of the way NRS is written? Outside of the Truckee River?
There will be several steps to this process
Okay.
if we did that, including changing the 377B plan.
Right.
You know, you'll have to expand the plan. That may require some amendments to the ICA as well.
Will that require legislative action?
No.
Okay.
It will not require legislative action. The statutory authority is more broad. What narrows it then is all the documents that have come since then with the 377B plan, your ICA, and some of those other things. Just by way of reminder, this board has the authority to amend the 377B plan by itself. Changes to the interlocal cooperative agreement, however, will require each of the involved entities to vote on that and approve it as well. So it'll be a more complicated process.
Chairman?
Mr. Lucy.
Sorry, sir. I apologize.
Okay, we'll give another.
I'm back with you. I apologize.
That's all right. We did item 6,
D and E.
D and E, and there were the financial updates.
Okay.
We'll take D first, the monthly report on the authority's financial status. Do you have any questions or comments on that?
No, I reviewed the documents and I'm okay with everything. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so can I get a motion to approve D?
You don't have to approve that.
Oh,
Mr.
we haven't done the agenda yet,
We
have we?
haven't done the agenda yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do have a motion to approve the agenda, pulling out number 4.
For canvassing the vote, yes, I second the motion.
Well, we have a second. I'm looking for
Okay.
any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, passes unanimously. Thanks, Bob. So now we can move on to D. It does ask for possible action, Jay.
You do not have to act on a monthly report. If you want to, you can.
Okay.
You agendize it for that purpose, but you don't have to. I would suggest that you go to 6A and then do 6B. These are the most important items on this agenda.
Okay, so we'll get there. let's talk about the D, 1D, approval of the draft minutes of October 12th. We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed, passes unanimously. Announcements, Jay?
Just make sure that when you second a motion or when you make a motion, it's very difficult sometimes to determine who is doing that. And we go back and look at the tapes over and over again. And until we get better at it, without Laura, we're going to just ask you to, it'd be nice as the chair would say, yes, we have a motion from Mr. Hartung, second from Mr. Abbott, and then that way we got it.
I'm used to Laura giving me the big eye if she didn't hear. So if you don't hear the motion, let me know and I'll.
And our minute taker is on this side now,
Well,
so.
she's taking minutes. So you're not familiar with this up here, so we'll do that from now on.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
That's the only announcement I have. Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Number 2, discussion and update on the status of the Flood Control Project Needs Committee, possible action.
There is no report at this time.
Okay. We'll move on to number 3, Technical Advisory Committee. Who's doing that? Danielle?
Yes, sir. So you have the report in your packet. I'm happy to answer any questions, and we elected a new chair. So anyhow,
Okay. Questions or comments?
Roll the agenda a little bit.
Seeing none, looking for a motion?
So moved by Hartung.
Second by Abbott.
And you got that, correct? Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Oh, I didn't hear Bob. Bob?
says it's active.
Says it's there.
Commissioner Lucy?
I think that was an aye.
Bob, you there? I know. Okay.
All circuits are busy. Please try your call again later.
Where were we just at? I have even lost track. Which one are we looking to, from? 3? So we didn't get the vote on 3, right?
No.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, okay.
I don't know.
Why don't we move ahead to number 6A, financial, discussion of the quote received for general liability. We can't approve it today unless he gets back.
Hi, you've reached Bob Lucy. I'm unable to get to my phone right now.
That's correct. We can't approve it today. I note for the chair, if for whatever reason we're not able to get Commissioner Lucy again, our general liability policy lapses on the 15th of this month. So we would need to, the ICA
November?
requires us to, yes. The ICA requires us to have liability insurance. We might have to call a special meeting to deal with that. We could post the agenda for that
Okay,
today and then hope that we could set you up on the 14th or the 15th would be the earliest we could do that. And we could just do everyone by phone. We've had a lot of luck with that. But
Except for
to just, except for today. But that having been said, just to give you the background on that, the staff is recommending that we renew the general and excess liability policy with Allied World Insurance. This will be the second year that we've had them as our general liability insurer. Our premium is going up $143 this year, which is not significant on a $65,000 policy. of note, the difference between Allied and some of the others as far as paperwork is they have actually split the policy in two. So we have a general liability policy and then an excess coverage policy. That gets us to our $5 million single event coverage, where in the past that was just rolled into a single policy, but the coverage really is the same. And so that's
Okay.
what we need. So I guess we can't call for a
How many
vote.
days in advance do you have to post for a special meeting?
It's three working days.
Okay, so next week.
So if we go on Thursday, we have to have that posted Monday by 9 o'clock in the morning. Like I said, I will, if we can't take care of it today, I will just go and post, and that would allow us to,
Monday's not a working day.
Monday's a holiday.
that's right. Well, if I post today, we're okay.
Okay.
Hey, Bob sent me a text with I. He did?
Bring it forward and show it. I see that. Yes,
Yes, I'll certify that he said aye on that last item.
on number 3.
He's
That is-
trying.
Number 3?
Yes.
That was the vote on 3.
That was item number 3. That's a technical advisory committee
Okay.
report, which is not critical.
Okay, how about B? Discussion possible action to approve a second amendment to the agreement for professional engineering services.
Yes.
Hi, you've reached Bob.
That is a second amendment to our agreement with Atkins North America. It makes changes to the scope of services, increases the maximum total contract amount by $2,000,9,087. That brings the new maximum total contract amount to $6,245,969. The changes to the scope include modeling analysis of sedimentation impacts resulting from the likely increase of flows downstream because of the Vista Narrows element. They'll also be looking at changes to inundation areas, and they will be reviewing impacts to certain areas that have been identified by the Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe as areas of concern for them because of increased flows. This information is needed for the supplemental environmental impact statement and for our permitting efforts on the Vista Narrows project element. I will also be using that additional information for the takings analysis downstream. So this is critical work. The initial agreement was for the 60% design of the Vista Narrows element. The original contract was for $3,216,901. The board will recollect that last month we approved the first amendment to that agreement. That first amendment added the common features terracing element, engineering for that, to this contract with the Corps of Engineers. That added just over $1 million and brought it to $4.2 million overall. So this contract has gone through some changes. I wanted to be clear about where that was headed. If you have any questions specifically about the scope, I defer to Mr. Aldean about that.
Questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, you want to tackle number 5?
We're not a,
No, we don't have a quorum.
no, I was talking about public.
Sorry, Chairman.
I'll get it there.
Hello?
There you go. Vote on 6A.
Chairman, you got me?
I got you.
Vote on 6A.
Sorry, sir. I apologize for my spotty service today.
So, yeah, 6A.
Okay, so we're talking about item 6A, financial items, discussion, the quote received for general liability insurance. If you've read the report, looking for a motion to accept that, 6A?
Motion to accept by Hartung.
Second by Abbott.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Did you hear that, Bob?
Yes, I got it, sir.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, passes unanimously. We'll hurry to 6B.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify that motion to make sure that is approving binding that insurance coverage,
Yes.
correct? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, motioner agrees.
Okay, 6B, discussion possible action to approve a second amendment. Any questions or comments? Okay, looking for a motion.
Move to approve Abbott.
Second, Hartung.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, passes unanimously. We're getting through this. Okay. So we didn't, 4's been pulled.
I think we need to finish 3.
Yeah. well, 3, did we ever vote on 3?
I don't think he lost it.
Well, he gave me a text.
For aye, so we're good on that. Okay, so 4 is out. Let's go to 5. Discussion of the outcome of the November 6, 2018 vote on ballot question WC1.
Mr. Chair, if I had a presentation and you were actually starting as a group to discuss that, I would rather that we push forward item number 7 and number 8. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, 6C, it's the home elevation. Let's get that one. Okay. 6C, the home elevation.
Okay, is this a brand new request, Eric, this home elevation? Is this a brand new request for this home elevation?
Yes, so this is one of the homes in the FEMA grant. Eric Sheets, for the record, engineer.
Okay.
Basically, this is us starting forward with the packet of 10 homes that we were approved for the FEMA grant on. So we want to start using up that money.
Okay, questions, Mr. Chairman?
Questions or comments? Mr. Hartung?
Thank you. So Eric, they do understand that this is a taxable event.
Actually, so following up with some discussion last time, the match that's from FEMA
Yes.
is definitely not taxable. They do have a waiver for that from the IRS.
Okay,
FEMA has also said that the match that comes from the flood project portion also should be non-taxable as well. I don't want to pretend that I'm an accountant or in the IRS. All I'm going to do is forward the email that I got from the director from FEMA that says just what I stated.
Okay.
And they can submit that with their taxes.
I would love to get a waiver from the IRS because I know that there was some
Question on it.
huge question on it, and I believe we still have one homeowner, if I remember correctly, Mr. Aldine, that is still embroiled with the IRS.
So also to clarify, that's why we wanted to get the FEMA grants.
Okay.
FEMA exempted themselves, and by the opposite token on that, they theoretically included everybody besides FEMA
Okay.
when they made a tax change in 2005. So the previous home that we did was not under a FEMA grant.
Okay.
So we burden the whole
Okay,
amount.
great. All right.
Then,
Well,
for the last 5 years, I've been trying to get FEMA grants so that we could get into this tax shelter, if you will.
okay. That's great news.
And we finally received it, so we want to.
It's been a huge hindrance for some of these homeowners to even
Exactly.
think about this because the
a huge
liability is massive.
Correct, yeah, I'm with you.
You know, it was, I believe it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000.
Easily could have been.
Puts them in a higher tax bracket.
A very much higher tax bracket for that particular year, yes.
Yeah,
Mr.
so this
Chairman.
is a
Okay.
way that we can
Wonderful.
fight through that.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Looking for a second. Motion by Hartung.
Motion by Hartung.
Second by Abbott.
We have a second by Abbott. Any further discussion? Mr. Abbott?
Yeah, so this is my first one. So are we just, I guess, do they go out for a bid and then we just give them?
Yes, so.
How does that work?
Part of the program, or the program, was basically modeled after programs that have been done around the country. Placer County did some outside of Sacramento. New Orleans has done some, but the key is basically you, in essence, allow the homeowner, because it's their private property, to go out and get a contractor. There's a couple benefits to the flood project and, public jurisdictions for that. Primarily being that, A, it's their home. They get to choose what they want to do with their home, but they also then have the liability because they directly contract with the contractor.
Okay.
We require the elevation to be a certain elevation, 3 feet above base flood elevation at a minimum. But outside of that, they get to directly contract with a licensed contractor.
And then do we reward the grant after they've completed the work?
We
or they-
reimburse based on the invoices that those homeowners receive.
Okay.
Yeah, so we actually pay the homeowners, and that's why that tax consequence comes in.
Gotcha.
If we had paid the contractors directly, then we get into that liability discussion.
I gotcha. Awesome. Thank you.
Mr. Hartung?
One more question, Eric, if I may. Does FEMA put boundaries on these kinds of elevations? In other words, where they have to be in a storm surge area or a riverine environment, where the
So,
water will flow in and flow out and not stay there for a period of time?
correct, yes. In particular, they require flood vents to be installed, and those allow the water to pass
Move.
through.
Right, exactly.
And we also will have a rider placed on the homes in the agreement with the homeowner. That's the second attachment that's there, and that basically creates a flowage easement, if you will.
Okay, right. But these are I just wondered if FEMA required it to be in either, when you talk about in Louisiana, when you talk about New Orleans, I mean, that's a storm surge. That water flows in, the tide comes in, it rises, whatever the elevation is, and then the tide flows out 3-4 days, it's gone, it's done its damage.
Yes.
In a riverine environment, of course, water flows in, it may take a little longer, but it'll typically recede within, 3, 4, 5 days as well.
Exactly, right. Yep, I'm with you, and basically, again, the idea is to allow the homeowners to be, have their first floor carpet high
Right.
and dry. you know,
Right.
And,
And have their house not be a hydrologic impediment.
correct.
Right, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Eric, the $203,000, that's the total for that house?
So that's actually gonna be a budget amount. I actually expect that to be lower than that
Because
amount.
of the FEMA grant would,
So that is what I'm using to come up with that number. I'm working with FEMA right now to deal with inflation values. They basically said that they would accept a 3% per year, which is a very nominal construction inflation amount, based off of a previous amount from 165,000 that they utilized before. So that's just an escalated number that creates a budget for us.
okay. Bob, any questions? Are you there?
No, I have no questions, sir.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, looking for a motion.
We have it.
That's what we do, we have a motion. I'm so confused this morning.
Motion by
Okay.
Abbott, second by Hartung.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we did D and E. 7, performance evaluation of the general counsel, Mr. Wolves. Do you have any closing arguments before we pass a verdict?
I'll invoke my right to remain silent.
Okay,
Taking the
good
fifth.
idea. I'll start off by saying, when we hired Michael, how many years ago? 7, there was quite a few people seeking that position, and Michael stood out as one of the top water attorneys in town, and that remains, in my opinion, true. So for me, I appreciate the job that you've done. Keep trying to keep us out of trouble if I can stay on track here, but we do appreciate it. Sometimes attorneys do nothing but get in the way. If you have 3 attorneys in a room, you'll have 5 different opinions, and Mike has 2, at least 2 on every subject we do. So I appreciate everything you do for us, Michael.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hartung.
Thank you. Mr. Wolves, yeah, your performance is exemplary, and the only bad thing I can say is that you're an attorney. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's one of those things.
We won't hold it against you.
It's like being a politician, Mr. Wolves.
Yeah.
You get that same moniker, sadly, of being in a specific group. You've done a great job for us, though, and I genuinely appreciate your counsel. And I will also add, Mr. Chairman, that there's never been a time when I needed to have a question answered, regardless of the day of the week, that Mr. Wolves has not picked up the phone. And that's not a comment about you either, Mr. Aldean. You've been exactly the same, and I mean, it's been very much appreciated to have access, because a lot of times we do have to digest things on odd days, and you have very little time to make some of these decisions, and you're trying to digest huge amounts of information, voluminous amounts of information, and you've always been available, and I genuinely appreciate that access. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Abbott.
Yeah, some of my short tenure you've been great. I don't think we've had any issues. It's been, just straight shooting. I also still believe you live in Sparks, so you're obviously a smart man there. Give him that one, that's for sure. So, just all good stuff. I'd give you a 11 out of 10. So, good stuff.
Mr. Lucy, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me? I'm having a really tough time hearing you, sir.
Okay, we're discussing Councilor Wolves. Do you have any comments?
Mr. Walls' review, and all my comments would be that Mr. Walls has been a fantastic counsel for us, and I really enjoy his service to the Truckee River Flood Project.
Okay, any other comments? So you're not seeking a raise, and what are we looking for action? Just to continue his employment?
Yeah, none necessary.
Just keep on going.
My contract just requires an annual review. It
Okay.
doesn't make any changes to anything.
Okay, so I don't think even we have to, yeah. Thanks for everything you do, Michael, appreciate it.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, we'll move on to number 8, proclamation possible action to declare November 4th through November 10th, 2018 as Nevada Flood Awareness Week. Danielle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in your packet, you have the proposed proclamation. So if you'd like to read that, our agency is participating in Flood Awareness Week again this year. I was out at the Meadowood Mall on the weekend representing our agency, and we were there with a host of other agencies talking about flood preparedness, flood awareness, and we had good turnout. There were lots of shoppers, and so we'll, with your permission, we'll continue to participate in these public outreach events and try to educate the public over the coming years as to the risks of flooding and what they can do to prepare in our community.
Did you get a lot of questions or comments from people down there?
We did, yeah, a variety of questions. They were all very impressed with our maps, I have to say. So kudos to our consultants who've put those together. And a lot of them didn't realize what a significant, serious problem it was as far as the overall extent of flooding. I had a large map printed of the overall floodplain footprint. And, I'm assuming that a lot of these folks are new to the area. And so, it's really good to try to educate them on what sorts of issues there are in our community. And we did have some other people who visited who have been here for many years. And so they were able to kind of recount their stories of what had happened during past floods and what they'd experienced. So that information is always useful to us as well. So, yeah, it was a good turnout.
Okay, so I don't think we have to read the proclamation, but
No, you don't want
too many whereases. Mr. Hartung? Nope. Mr. Abbott? No, we don't have to read it. So, anything to say, Mr. Lucy?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to number 9, board member comments. Requests and future agenda items. I would like to see, I already talked about the fees that we can put in place to protect the outlying areas. I think for a December meeting, are we going to have a December meeting?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if we're going to have a December meeting. It's possible, but I don't think we have a lot of items.
And usually we don't, I think. So January meeting would be fine, but let's bring back way forward. Let's lay it out what we're going to do now, and people may be wondering, since it didn't pass,
Well,
what are we doing here?
What I would suggest is that after the last vote item, which we pretty much have concluded, we go back to number 5 and discuss a few things. I'd like to be able to just make you aware of certain things and aspects of what we have done as staff over the last couple of years. And so I would be happy to give a presentation or just to have you folks discuss what you would like us to do. We got some direction from you, Mr. Chair, but I think there's more to be said.
So, you know, I'm sitting here thinking I'd rather have a workshop type atmosphere for the same day. And we don't have to have it here. We can have it at the airport, wherever you want. We can have it at the office. And so we can have an open discussion and talk about what we want to do.
Keep in mind that the Flood Needs Committee still has one last report to file, and that report is the report that discusses all the other extraneous flooding and drainage problems that the county, you know, has to deal with. Those in Sparks, those in Washoe, you know, and excluded from the cities, and then those in Reno. I also wanted to mention that the city of Reno is currently investigating the possibility of forming its own drainage utility, which could either assist or conflict, or, you know, depending on how that's done. I think that that is an issue that the board needs to be aware of. But the way that I expect this to happen over the next couple of months of 2019 is that in early 2019 and early in January, we will hear reports from the various communities, the various entities on drainage desires that they would like to tackle. We will include those items, and that information will be presented to the Needs Committee directly. We will then compile that information into a report, and then the Needs Committee will vote on that mid-February timeframe, probably the second Thursday in February. And then they'll be done. That information that is in that report, I don't expect it to be extremely detailed, but I do expect it to mention certainly geographical areas and potential problems and some possible solutions for these various issues. Obviously, the North Valleys is one that's right on everybody's mind. We also have the irrigation problems in Reno. I don't know if Reno is going to vote to enact its drainage utility. It could have some problems with trying to include certain elements of, let's say, the flood project. Obviously, we can't build the flood project as we originally conceived it. So now we're going to have to change that. And I think all of these issues need to be discussed, but January, we could conceivably have a meeting and be prepared to do a workshop format for the board. We would certainly advertise that to all the communities and make sure that those individuals, I would recommend that it be done outside of this chamber, but maybe in something like where we've done it in the past, like at the airport plaza. Or
I just heard that a few minutes ago. I don't know where I heard that.
Well, maybe you said that. I would prefer to do it there rather than in our office. So we could be ready for that in January.
It would be the perfect time for the Needs Committee to give a report to us, and Reno, if they want to talk about drainage and stuff like that. I don't understand why Reno would want to go off and do it on their own, to tell you the truth, because if we did it here, we have the authority to put fees in place to pay for that. So anyway, that would be my suggestion, that we have a workshop in January. And let's not do it in these chambers. Let's do it somewhere else like the airport. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Hartung.
Would anyone else see the wisdom in potentially having a joint meeting with the Needs Committee, so that when we do that workshop, we have them there and we can discuss with them? Or would that somehow violate the intent of that committee?
Well, I think if they just came and gave us a report, and then we can talk about it.
It wouldn't violate any open meeting law issue as long as you posted a notice for both boards. It would be challenging. The Needs Committee has 16 members.
Okay.
It's a, what's the word I'm looking for? It would be difficult to manage. We'll just put it that way. I think that's a, you know, they are involved and
I think the parlance of the time is herding cats.
no comment.
They're all busy individuals.
They're busy.
Well, and I wouldn't expect that the whole committee would show up. They'd
But a
probably,
report might be easier, and I would guess that Chair LaRiviere would be very interested in coming and commenting.
And one of the things that I'd like to see is maps around the room and you know, just some, you know, sort of turn it into a very tactile style of workshop.
One year we were up at UNR. That,
with the innovation?
yeah, well, it was in that same general area,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments? Mr. Lucy, anything?
Mr. Chair.
No, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Could we just, one of my item of bookkeeping here, on item number 8, we did not have a vote, and that is that proclamation. Since that will be signed, it would be nice if we could have a vote declaring it Flood Awareness Week.
So moved by Hartung for item number 8.
Second by Abbott.
We have a motion second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open up the public comment. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the authority, and I apologize for the communications this morning, and without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.